hand has 5 fingers. With these 5, grab the enemy. This was the original statement written on an anti-fascist poster from 1928. A poster that directly influenced the album artwork for System of a Down's debut record, released 70 years later. The original poster was designed by John Hartfield, a German visual artist who pioneered the use of art as a political weapon, a concept that would become all too familiar for System of a Down. The poster was produced for a German newspaper called Rot Fahn and was a call to vote for the KPD, the Communist Party of Germany. The KPD was a major political party officially active from 1919 up until 1933, when they were banned from the German Reich by the Nationalist Socialist Party one day after coming into power. After this, the KPD went underground and became an unofficial resistance movement against the fascist regime of Adolf Hitler. Resistance would become the foundation upon which System of a Down would base their entire musical career on. Resistance against hate, resistance against injustice, and resistance against fascism. In 1915, an event that would become known as the Armenian Genocide took place in the Ottoman Empire during the First World War. An event that saw the attempted systematic extinction of the Armenian people. An estimated 1.2 million Armenian people would lose their lives during this tragic episode in history. However, Serj Tankian's grandparents would live to tell the tale. Over the course of their career, System of a Down have used their fame and ever-growing platform to highlight these historical atrocities in the hope of bringing awareness to the importance of standing against fascism and political tyranny. Whilst many artists over the years have made public acknowledgements of their political beliefs, none have made their statement quite in the same way as System of a Down. And this is their story.
All my grandparents were survivors of the genocide, and at times wouldn't be able to talk about it out of the pain that they suffered. But, you know, it's my closest link to a family tree.
Serj Tankian, born in Beirut in 1967, and Daron Malakian, born in Los Angeles in 1975. They would end up forming a band together. Whilst they had both attended the Rose and Alex Pilibos Armenian school during their formative years, due to their age difference, they wouldn't officially meet until the early 90s, when they would become friends after realizing that they were working on separate musical projects in the same rehearsal studios. Serj would move to America when his parents emigrated to the country sometime in the mid-70s and would later obtain a marketing degree in 1989. All 4 of his grandparents were forced to leave what is now modern-day Turkey due to the Armenian genocide that took place during the final years of the now dissolved Ottoman Empire. Despite growing up in America, Serj took it upon himself to become an activist from an early age, specifically focusing on the atrocious events his grandparents had to endure due to the tyrannical rule of their respective countries. Serj would even write an open letter to the people of Turkey to share his story of his relatives in the hope that others would come forward to help in the fight for justice and equality.
From an early age, both my grandfather and my grandmother from my mom's side, who I knew better, would talk about their family and the things that occurred, not in specific detail or gruesome detail, of course, but it was those personal stories of what happened to my grandfather's own family, my grandmother's family, that got me to, understand about the Armenian genocide.
It would be his college years where he became president of the Armenian Students Association, where his love for music and passion for justice would become one. His goal was to bring about recognition for the Armenian people that had to endure the genocide, with over 1 million losing their lives. Malakian, on the other hand, was born in America, and whilst his parents emigrated to the US before he was born, he kept a firm grip on his Armenian roots due to his attendance at the same Armenian school as Serj in Los Angeles. Malakian was introduced to music from an early age and started collecting records when he was just 4 years old. He once cited the Beatles and Slayer as being two of his favourite bands, with Rain in Blood as one of his favourite records. Malakian's early fantasy of becoming a musician was well known to his teachers. He was once called into the principal's office and asked what he wanted to do with his life, to which he replied, "I want to become a musician." However, his teachers didn't understand how this was going to be possible, as he'd never taken a music class in his life. They simply shook their heads in disbelief. His grades were terrible, paying zero attention in class and failing most of them, and the only school activity that he did look forward to was life sciences, which certainly wasn't going to give him the knowledge or experience he needed to make it in the music industry.
Music to me has been with me all my life. I mean, I would always beg my parents to get me an instrument until I was 12 years old, though they finally got me a guitar. But I would always beg for drums, but they finally got me a guitar. And at the time, I was very into like metal and, you know, Metallica and Slayer. And so I would just listen to the albums and learn how to play the songs by listening. Along the way, I learned that, you know, I would write my own songs, and at age 14 or 13 or 14, I started writing my own songs.
On his 12th birthday, his parents took him to a music store where he thought he would be blessed with his first drum kit after the family had moved into a house big enough to fit one. However, his parents had other plans. They told him there's no way you can turn off a drum kit and suggested a guitar might be a better fit for the household overall. So he chose an Arbor guitar and a small amp manufactured by a company called Gorilla.
Well, my dad, when he lived in Iraq before they came to the States, was a dance choreographer, like did a lot of choreography for Armenian folk dance groups. So I kind of grew up around seeing pictures of him from that time, and it was always something that, you know, meant something to me.
Malakian started to teach himself guitar. He wanted to follow in the footsteps of his biggest heavy metal influences, which included Sabbath, Ozzy, and Slayer. In an interview in 2003, he said, "I respect anyone that gets on an instrument and gives 100% of themselves," and that's exactly what he did. Serj and Daron made it clear from an early age that they had two distinct passions in life: music and expressing themselves creatively. And in 1992, the pair would form a band called Soil. This is also where Shavo Adagian would enter the scene. However, Shavo didn't join Soil. He would get to know Serj and Daron in the rehearsal studios and discover their shared Armenian heritage and love for heavy metal. This era in the early 90s can be seen as the foundations that would lead to the birth of one of the most unique metal bands of modern times, System of a Down.
When I got here, I spoke mostly Armenian, a little English, and a little Arabic, because I was born in Lebanon. I started playing music while I was in university. Then I started getting, joined a band, but still not very seriously. Graduated university with a bachelor's in marketing, created a software company, and ran a software company for years. I did many interesting things. And I even ran a car wash while I was in university.
We all met sort of jamming through other bands at studios, and the coincidence is that three of us went to the same elementary school at different times. And I guess Daron and I knew of Serj, but Serj didn't know of us because he was older. We met later on. We all chose music as our careers, and we all were jamming in bands, and we were all rehearsing in Burbank, and it was a studio, and we all met, and we were like, "Hey, weren't you that guy that went to that school?" Yeah. And that's how we met, and sort of a band broke up and another band started, and then that band broke up and another band started, and all that spawned System of a Down.
System of a Down would officially form in February of 1995 after Soil had split up. Daron, Serj, and Shavo decided to form the band together and bring in drummer Ontranik Kakachurian, or more easily known as Andy. Andy was also of Armenian heritage and had previously played in a band with Daron called Snowblind, as the pair were friends in school. Shavo had also attended the same Armenian school in Los Angeles after his parents emigrated from Armenia to the US in 1979 when Shavo was just around 5 years old. During his childhood, Shavo showed a great desire to be creative. Not only would he discover punk rock and metal, but he would also start directing skateboarding videos with local friends. Despite attending the same school as Daron and Serj, due to their age difference, they wouldn't become officially acquainted until the early 90s. All three of them were working on separate musical projects in the same rehearsal space, and when they weren't playing, they would start to hang out and became friends. At the time, Shavo was in a band called Roswell, and his bandmates helped him to explore artists like Tool, Failure, and the Stanford Prison Experiment.
I think it was 82, 83. My dad was driving a lunch truck, and he used to park at A&M Records, and there was a lot of artists that went through there, and he brought me my first Kiss record, because I guess they were mixing the record there, and it was signed and all this stuff, and I just wore that record out as a kid, and it became this thing. When I was 12, 13, my grandma snuck a guitar into me, gave me a guitar, so I started off playing guitar, and without any lessons or anything, I kind of just practiced, and in my room, not my room, but our room, it was a one-bedroom apartment, so I jammed, I did what I had to do in there, and I just kind of taught myself how to play the guitar. I picked up the bass when I was like 17, when I couldn't find a bass player that could play the way I wanted a bass player to play with the style I was playing guitar.
His fascination with art, cinema, and obscure music would become invaluable to System of a Down due to his contributions towards stage design, video direction, and contributing many ideas to album artwork. With this being a brand new band, they needed a brand new name, and that name would come from a poem written by Daron Malakian. The poem was called Victims of a Down, but Shavo suggested they change it to System, as victims might not have as much appeal. The newly formed group that shared a passion for creativity, music, and politics would soon start to work on a demo tape that would become the holy grail for early System of a Down fans. And whilst the band would soon build a dedicated, almost obsessed fan base, trying to get a record deal would seem impossible. The band would also become responsible for a now historic day of street riots in Los Angeles, riots that would be shown on every single news channel in the area and become synonymous with the band's name. System of a Down were about to rain down a world of chaos, the likes of which the music industry wasn't prepared for. And this was just the beginning.
I mean, there was a lot of things. The music, first of all, we just kind of did our own thing. It wasn't that the other stuff wasn't good. We've been inspired by a lot. You know, we listen to a lot of music. Daron listens to a lot of music, Serj, John. And just, I think it's the way it's also arranged. You know, Daron has a really great ear and style and songwriting ability. So even if I brought riffs in, he just arranges it in a different way that boom, you know, and then Serj's vocals, we just kind of ran with it. And it's just what we can do together. When we start playing, that's what we sound like together.
System of a Down would be met with resistance before they even played their first show. In the spring of 1995, Shavo was working in a bank, whilst also trying to manage the band. Every spare minute he could find, he would be calling venues to ask for a show. However, his requests would be met with constant rejection. The venue promoters would just say they'd never heard of System and hang up. This was during a new era of concert promotion. Instead of booking artists and hoping a crowd would turn up with some local promo, it was now the band's responsibility to try and sell the tickets. If the venue thought you could get enough people through the door, they'd give you a show. It was because of Shavo's relentless drive that would land them their first gig. He would hassle one particular venue on a daily basis, asking for a show, and the venue eventually gave in to Shavo's demands, saying, "Look, if you can sell tickets, then you can play."
I remember going to see them the first time I went to see them play. They played at the Viper Room in LA. It was packed, and 200 people. And I remember watching the show and just laughing. I laughed the whole time. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen, but in a good way. It wasn't like laughing like, what a joke. It was just so over the top and so extreme, and Armenian folk dancing with heavy metal riffs and wild political lyrics and screaming. It was crazy music. And System of a Down were a heavy band, you could say a heavy metal band, who didn't follow those rules. They clearly didn't fit, but they were so good that they transcended not fitting.
The venue in question was the infamous Roxy Theatre in West Hollywood. Over the years, the Roxy has hosted some of the biggest names in rock and metal, from Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses to The Clash and even Prince. So much like any aspiring band in Los Angeles, the Roxy, along with the Whiskey and Viper Rooms, were dream venues to play. System of a Down had been given their first real opportunity to showcase their talents, and they wouldn't disappoint. This show had the potential to be their big break into the newly emerging metal scene. At first, they were given 75 tickets to sell, but managed to unload over 150 in total. But they had no radio play, no music video on MTV, and hadn't even released an album yet. What they did have, though, was a small group of obsessed fans thanks to a demo tape recorded in early 1995. The tape, now known simply as System of a Down Demo Tape 1, would be run in limited quantities and feature an early version of Sugar, a single that would be officially released in 1998. The demo tape would be stocked in a local independent record store called Backside Records in Burbank, California, and would result in some serious hype for the band. Some friends decided to buy a bunch of copies and started to hand them out on the streets of Los Angeles to local alternative kids. And before long, the record store would become inundated with phone calls about the demo. Not only did the tape sell out insanely fast, but word had quickly spread around LA about an up-and-coming new band called System of a Down, and everyone wanted a piece of them. System of a Down would play their first show on May the 28th, 1995 at the Roxy Theatre, and despite selling over 150 tickets, there was only 30 people in the crowd. It seemed the hype wasn't going to live up to expectations. However, as soon as System hit the stage, over 150 kids stormed the venue and went crazy. It was clear they were only there for one reason, as everyone left when System had finished, leaving the other bands to play to an almost empty room. System of a Down had no idea what had just happened, but what they did know is that their world was about to change forever. System of a Down continued playing shows and recording demos during the mid-90s, but was struggling to secure a record deal despite the fact that major label A&R executives were turning up to their shows. The labels could see the buzz around the band, but they simply didn't know what to do with them. System wasn't just another metal band. Their musical heritage transcended the usual path of Black Sabbath and British new wave metal outfits. Their incredibly diverse musical influence was a precursor to an entirely different beast altogether. Daron was a fan of the Beatles and Slayer, Shavo was a fan of Kiss, and Serj's biggest influences was an Indian sitar player called Ravi Shankar and the Bee Gees. Yes, you heard that right. One of Serj's favourite records was Saturday Night Fever by the Bee Gees. On top of this, all three of them were heavily influenced by traditional Armenian music due to their shared Armenian heritage. This wasn't your average metal band, not by a long shot. It's no surprise that major labels had no idea what to do with this band, but one man would instantly connect with them, a man that often looked for artists that didn't fit the typical musical mold. That man was Rick Rubin. This is also the era of System of a Down where the original drummer would end up smashing his hand to pieces, opening the door for the extremely talented John Dolmayan. Dolmayan was also of Armenian heritage, being born in Beirut, the same city as Serj. Dolmayan's father was a saxophone player, and John became interested in the drums from an early age, playing along to his father's jazz records. John would help to bring a dynamic energy level to the band's sound that was lacking in their early years with the original drummer Andy. John Dolmayan would join System of a Down at the pinnacle time of their career, just as they were being introduced to Rick Rubin, who would end up producing all 5 of System of a Down's studio albums. Rick Rubin is one of the most renowned producers in the music industry. He founded his label American Recordings in 1988 and has worked with almost every iconic artist you can think of, from Slayer to The Cult, Johnny Cash to Run DMC, and Slipknot to Kanye West. Rubin went to see System play the Viper Room in West Hollywood and spoke to them after the show, and the next thing they knew, they found themselves in a recording studio called Sound City Studios in Van Nuys, California, working on their debut album after signing to Rubin's label. On June the 30th, 1998, System of a Down would release their debut self-titled album. It was raw, angry, politically charged, and arguably one of the most unique metal records released in that decade. Sugar, released a month earlier as a single and an EP, was accompanied by a music video that contained a prologue referencing global injustice and the hypocrisy of global media.
We're in a rating system here, and the key factor is sensationalism.
System of a Down wasted little time in getting their first message across to their fans. You are controlled by the media and the messages they feed you. It was clear that System of a Down were referencing the fact that global and historical atrocities such as the Armenian genocide go completely unacknowledged, simply because the fight for justice wasn't a key agenda when it came to TV ratings. You only have to look at the interspersed imagery in the music video for Sugar to get a basic understanding of what the band were angry about, and soon they would take their message to the streets, causing riots and chaos wherever they roam. Whilst their debut record caused a small storm, it would be their second offering, Toxicity, that would see System of a Down reach new levels of fame. And with that fame came manic hype from crazed fans that would help to memorialize a historic day in System of a Down's career. Toxicity was scheduled for release on September the 4th, 2001, and the first single from the record, Chop Suey, which landed a month before, would put their record label on edge and also have parents across America questioning what their teenage sons and daughters were listening to. Chop Suey was a song that addressed the issue of death, but more specifically, how we die and if we deserve to die based on our life choices. Initially, System of a Down wanted to call the song Suicide, but this was met with instant disapproval from the record label. And given some of the lyrical content of the song, it could have led to the album being banned altogether. I don't think you trust in my self-righteous suicide. I cry when angels deserve to die. A lyric that most likely set off alarm bells for parents of the new millennium. Whilst the idea of metal music that dealt with controversial topics has now gained wide acceptance, back in 2001, System of a Down was seen as a threat to the youth of America, especially by religious groups. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Serj had taken these words directly from the Bible, and they are said to be the very last words of Jesus Christ while he lay upon the cross and took his last breath. The video for Chop Suey, which was now airing across major music video channels globally, became an instant hit with the alternative metal scene, crossing the divide of the emerging nu metal, heavy metal, and even hardcore. System of a Down was so blown away by the support of their fans, they wanted to give something back to them. A small gesture of appreciation in the form of a free concert. A concert that would spark riots across Los Angeles. September the 3rd, 2001, in a parking lot on Hollywood Boulevard, K-Rock FM, a radio station that once vowed to never even play a single song by System of a Down, would be the hosts of a free concert by the band, where locals expected around 3,000 to 5,000 kids to show up. Toxicity was scheduled for release the following day, and Serj had done a brief interview on air announcing the free show, but little promotion was needed. The stage was set, the band were pumped, but instead of 3,000 to 5,000 kids turning up, it's estimated that between 10,000 to 15,000 showed up to rock out to System of a Down. Unfortunately for the fans and Los Angeles, a fire marshal forced the band to cancel due to safety concerns, which in hindsight was probably the most dangerous thing he could have done.
Hollywood rock concert turns ugly when angry fans storm the stage and then the streets.
And perhaps you've never heard of System of a Down, but obviously thousands of other people certainly have.
Security guards rushed the band into a nearby van, and as they drove off, Chavo could see the huge System of a Down banner being taken down by the crew, which told the fans everything they needed to know. The show was a no-go. What started out as a few kids smashing up amps on stage, naturally angry at the show being cancelled, turned into an estimated 6 to 10 hour-long riot across the streets of Los Angeles. Full riot teams and armored vehicles were deployed across LA as System of a Down fans went on a rampage. The now infamous day of riots not only made headline news over multiple stations, but gave System of a Down a serious boost of free publicity for their second record that was due out the following day. Toxicity, however, would be a bittersweet moment for System of a Down. The album would be released on September 4th, 2001, and whilst it gave them a #1 album on the US Billboard charts, as well as global notoriety, it would also coincide with one of the darkest moments in American history, 9/11. It seemed all too ironically tragic that System of a Down would see such incredible success with their music aimed at raising the awareness of unjust war, terrorism, and genocide in the wake of such a devastating event. On the same day of the attacks, members of System of a Down's crew were at the airport on their way to get ready for a huge tour with Slipknot. Slipknot's Pledge of Allegiance tour would also feature Rammstein, Mudvayne, American Head Charge, but was postponed until the 21st of September. If any band at the time could empathize with the tragic loss of thousands of innocent lives, it was System of a Down. While System of a Down would go on to release 3 more studio records with Steal This Album in 2002 and a double album in 2005 with Mesmerize and Hypnotize, the band would soon announce that they were going on hiatus. Much to the surprise of their fans, in May of 2006, System of a Down said they were taking a break. They didn't know how long for, but they assured fans that they weren't calling it quits. They just needed some time to themselves. Chavo said in an interview that they simply wanted to pursue their own individual projects, as being in System of a Down had taken over 10 years of their life. However, this just didn't make much sense to their dedicated fans. In the space of just a few years, they had gone from playing small shows in West Hollywood to supporting Ozzy Osbourne, selling out tours, becoming global superstars, and also landing #1 albums across the globe, which for a band like System of a Down was a huge achievement. Why give this all up so soon into their career, a career that was only going up? When Daron formed a new band called Scars on Broadway with drummer John Dolmayan in the same year that System went on hiatus, it raised a lot of questions. This didn't seem like a band that all wanted to go separate ways. Daron even said in an interview he had enough material to release 10 albums. So what exactly was happening in the System of a Down camp? Over the coming years, members of the band would start to reveal how creative conflicts were driving them apart. They all wanted to go in separate directions artistically when it came to System of a Down's music. It seemed that the unique and diverse musical influence that had originally bonded the 4 Armenians was now the very catalyst for conflict between them. Although System would officially reform in 2010, it's been 12 years and we're still waiting for a new album. The closest we've come so far to the band being musically reunited is the latest singles, Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids, released back in November of 2020. Their career has been chaotic at best, and the one thing that's held it all together is the music. But it still remains to be seen how much longer they'll continue. One thing, however, is certain. There is no other band quite like System of a Down. If you enjoyed this, consider supporting me by joining my new Patreon, becoming a channel member, or watch another documentary right here on RAWMUSICTV. Check the links in the description.